Spade back here with you, High Noon Leatherworks, for another leather adventure. And today we're going to do some wet forming on a holster. And there's a couple of previous videos on this holster on doing the pattern and cutting out the leather. Now, I went ahead and skipped forward and done the dyeing, the stitching, got the strap on there, the belt strap. So the firearm that we're using is a Ruger Security 9. It'll also work for the same holster for a Smith & Wesson M&P Shield. It is unloaded for safety purposes. And I'm going to show you how I wet form my holsters to a specific handgun. So next you'll see I'll be at the sink, and I just do this at my kitchen sink, and then I'll come back out into the shop and I'll show you the next step. So I'll see you at the sink. Alright, so back in the kitchen so I can use the sink, and first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some plastic wrap and peel off a pretty good size chunk of that. Find my cutting spot here. Cut me off a decent sized piece. And then I'll lay my handgun on there, and then I'll just stretch that pretty tight over the surface. And it seems like a single thickness does fine, and all I'm doing is protecting the metal pieces, and this is pliable enough that it'll still allow you to do all your forming, but it protects your handgun. The next step is I'm going to take the leather holster and then I'll put it under some warm water in the sink. Now, I found that doing several of these, that I want to make sure, especially since this leather's already dyed, I want to make sure that I get this uniformly wet. And normally when you stamp leather or carve it or whatever you're doing, you're just casing it. You're just getting the leather moist. In this case, we're actually going to soak this leather under the faucet until it's really soft. Right now, it's fairly hard. So, and once you do this and it cures and it dries, it'll actually be harder than it is now. So I've got my water warm. It doesn't have to be burn your hand hot, just warm. And then I quickly get it wet uniformly inside and out. So I'm going all the way around. This does not have any protectant on it yet, so it's just the dyed leather. I'll just uniformly get it good and wet. You can hold your hand under the end of it, let it fill up with water. And you can feel it starting to get soft. Look how soft that is now. I want to make sure it's good and wet. So that I get a good form of the pistol that I'm going to be carrying in this holster, or the customer is. So we're good and wet. I'll let the excess drip out. Grab my handgun and I'm going to press that in there as far down as I want it to go. And then we'll move on to the next step. Alright, so I've got my wet holster. I've forced my gun in there that's wrapped in plastic wrap, saran wrap, whatever you want to call it. And then I've got a vacuum sealer here, a food saver. And I've got a quart food saver bag. Now this has some little dimples on it on one side and it's smooth on the other side. Well, it puts a neat pattern in it if someone wants a pattern on their holster without any extra carving or anything like that. So this person liked it, so we're going to put that pattern on the front. It'll be smooth on the back. I'll put that food saver bag in the food saver. Alright, if you were doing some meat or cheese or something like that, it's obviously not going to take that long. This food saver is pretty quick. But what it's doing is, the reason it takes that long for this holster is it's pulling all that air out around inside this holster away from the gun and around the outside. So it's pulling all that air from that moisture and everything. Well, this pattern, this rough side of this bag, has little tiny diamond shapes in it, and that's what's going to end up impressing into that leather and giving it a texture. Now you can see just by the light how much that vacuum pulled that leather down into the shape of the gun. So if you want to enhance that some, you can take your thumb and just press around the trigger guard just to give it a little more definition, down around the barrel. Now you can see the back side is pretty smooth, pretty slick, because there's no texture on the bag. So the side that's facing your pants or your body is going to be good and smooth, and the other side is going to have that little diamond texture on it. So like I said, some people like it, some people don't. And I go around a little bit on the back side here. Do the rail. Now, I normally, once I wet form these in these vacuum pack bags, I'll let that set for 2 hours in that bag. Then I'll take it out of the bag and I'll let it set for about another hour outside of the bag with the pistol still in the holster. Then after that full 3 hours, I'll pull the pistol out. I'll set this up on some type of tube or a piece of wood or something so it can stand upright and dry overnight. Then I can go ahead and put my finish coating on it, or my sheen, or whatever I'm going to place on the holster, and it'll be complete. So that's how I do my wet forming. If, let's say, the customer wants it smooth on both sides, doesn't want this texturing, then what I normally do is I'll put this in a quart Ziploc baggie, then I leave the Ziploc open, then I slide it into this vacuum bag, and that gives it a smooth surface because it's not touching this diamond shaped surface. So if you want it smooth all the way around, then just slide it in a quart Ziploc baggie first, leave it open so that the vacuum packer can draw all the air out of the vacuum bag and the Ziploc, and then that'll give you a smooth surface on both sides. So there's that diamond textured look, and then there's the smooth side. Now I guess if you wanted a special texture on it, you know, you could slide it in there on top of this, and then it would give it that texture. So you could play around with it and see what you like. So there's the finished wet forming on that particular holster. Thanks for coming along and seeing how I wet form my leather holsters to a specific pistol. And I appreciate you being with me. And like I always say, please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time.